It's Tuesday, August 6th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show. I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Roughly 15 minutes every day, trying to encourage us to be better citizens, to listen to each other, at least listen to the opposing views. Today, I want to focus on so-called fake news, which is really one of the major intents and ongoing theme of the show, is to look at 5 different information streams that I look at and encourage you to look at, by the way, and look at the way that they present the information, what they choose to present, what they choose not to present, and by virtue of doing these things, it makes a big difference how people looking at this information would perceive it. Right? Makes sense? So, let me go to what just happened. That was weird. Okay. So we go, today we'll start on the left. So Huffington Post is one of the more liberal information streams. Notice I'm not saying news, because the news is just the who, the what, the where, and the when. And most all of the information that comes at you these days is far beyond the who, the what, the where, and the when. It's full of jargon, jingoistic stuff, things that are intended to incite emotion, and also slews of opinion and prediction and so on. So the Huffington Post, as they're prone to do, has a big headline: "Racist Invasion Rhetoric Ripped from NRA Playbook." Okay. So according to this story that they have, they're saying that the NRA has been promoting this idea that people needed guns to throw off potential immigrant invasions. I don't know whether this is true or not, but the rhetoric here is inappropriate. Okay, they may want to draw attention to this, but they should have, without all the capital letters and all this, bold and the big titles and everything, the big headlines. They could have just said something like NRA, policy, whatever, and so therefore, based on these things, these letters, this pamphlet, whatever, they had in the past talked about promoting the idea that immigrants coming into the country would really require guns to defend ourselves, that kind of thing, which is the kind of headline that you would see on NPR, or a more reasoned and less emotional, less biased information stream. So CNN is also a little bit liberally biased here, and so their main headline is "Obama takes on hate and Trump takes on Obama." And so generally there's fairly there's a lot of different links here to different headlines. A lot of them are fairly negative about Mr. Trump. For example, there's one here that says the Trump campaign still owes El Paso more than $500,000 on the eve of the president's return visit. So it's these kinds of things that they're reported en masse. Many of these things are reported. And they're reported in CNN, but then if you look at, for example, Fox News or Breitbart, you won't see them at all. And so this is the key thing that I want to impress upon you, is if you don't, in the modern era, especially if you're looking at information on websites, if you're not looking at multiple streams of information, ones that are known to be, to vary in their bias, then you're going to get ignorant. Basically, you'll be ignorant. Okay, and that's not intended as an insult. That's just a descriptor. Okay, it's an adjective, and it means that you will not know a bunch of stuff that you should know. As a good citizen, you should know these things. And so don't let the media streams control what you do and do not know. All right? Because they'll be happy to do so. They'll be very happy to do so. Don't let yourselves fall into that trap. Get out there, take the extra time. It only takes a few minutes to like I do, okay? 5 different websites. I got five different tabs here in my browser, and I just look at them. I click at them. I look at the headlines that are out there. Sometimes there's a continuity, a thread of stories that go across all the different websites, the 5 websites, and I can see, directly head to head how these different information streams are presenting the information. In theory, should be the same information, right? The same thing happened. So in theory, the who, the what, the where, and the when should be identical, right? And it's now they get into, well, what does it mean? And and they throw in all kinds of, and it depends on the website. Some of them are very, very, very aggressive with negative connotation kinds of stuff, basically name calling on all kinds of things. Anyway, it all is intended to drive emotion in you and to persuade you and to deceive you, frankly. Like all propaganda, it's intended to deceive you. And the way to get around it is to either look at information streams that are less biased, like the NPR is a fairly good one, or some of the national television, the old networks, NBC, ABC, CBS. These are typically much less biased than a lot of other potential information streams. And why? Because they're on a national audience, and because they're televised live, they don't have the opportunity, at least not yet, at least not that I'm aware of, to cause the stream that you see to be different and adjusted for your benefit or to influence you. So right, at least at the moment, but it could happen one day, but at the moment, there's Lester Holt or one of the other anchors is speaking into the camera, and it's live, and if you watch that, it doesn't matter whether you're in Atlanta or Chicago or Los Angeles or Las Vegas or Anchorage, Alaska for that matter, no matter where you are, you're seeing him, and the information he's providing is at least consistent. Whereas these information streams, it's well documented that based on your normal profiles, based on your profiles in the, what you browse and stuff, they can radically alter. Just like you see, and how do you know what's going on? Those advertisements that you will see in various places, banners on the pages and stuff, they're very often related to recent purchases that you've made or recent searches that you've made. This is the same exact information that they're using to redirect and customize the information that they're sending you. And depending on their intent, they can really be trying to, use propaganda to influence you in the way that some puppeteer somewhere wants you influenced. Okay, NPR. There are some threads about mass shootings, and will legislators do anything about this? And I just recently done a show about this, but I do want to say, if you get a chance, go online. The Los Angeles Times appears to have written a good article where they had a small group of their staff do some significant research on shootings over the last decades. And based on this, based on looking at what was common amongst the people that are doing these things, they came up with some really interesting things that would seem to be true. And I want to say that when I was presenting some of information, I said, intuitively, I think some of these things are true. Well, they're saying that the data that they've collected and analyzed would seem to back up those intuitions. And for example, this idea that you see that these mass shootings have a tendency to happen in groups, it's because they definitely they cause people, all of the notoriety is the best word, all of the notoriety on all the different media and stuff like that. It causes people who are in an emotionally bad way to want to do it themselves. And just as I said, it seemed intuitive to me that there's some number of people like this. And so I just want to say, another thing that about that, and again, when I've mentioned this in the past, I've been clear about this. So back in the 70s, there was a lot of streaking going on. So people would strip off their clothes and they'd run across the 50-yard line at a football game, or they'd run out onto a volleyball court, or on a golf course or whatever. And the streaking stuff was going on like crazy, and it was accelerating, just like the mass shooting problems are accelerating. And so in the end, the networks just said, okay, look, it's going to be our policy. We are not going to put these people on television. We're not going to talk about who they are. We're just going to basically say, well, and I saw some programs where all of a sudden you'd come back from commercial or something, and the commentators would be there, and they'd say, yeah, somebody's a streaker on the court, on the field, on the whatever, on the stage, whatever it is, and while the police are taking them away, what did you think of the first quarter of action, or what did you think of the first act in the play, or whatever. And then that was it. And their names, I'm sure are in public record somewhere because they were charged with crimes and stuff like that. But the coverage was basically nil, and that whole streaking craze died very, very quickly when all of that notoriety and coverage was basically stopped. We just said, no, we're not going to do this. And again, just to emphasize, I am not in any way equating streaking with these mass shootings as far as the severity of these issues, but I am saying that, and it seems like the research is bearing this out more and more, and intuitively it would seem that there is this psychological thing in people that are on the edge of doing this, that seeing other people do this and gaining all the notoriety that they gain is also causing them to do it. Okay, and so the mass shooting stuff, NPR talks about, there's various calls now for additional weapon bans. There's these red flag laws that people are talking about to take guns away from people in crisis. And this is one of the factors that the Los Angeles Times found, is that people commit these crimes, they're in crisis somehow. So they've lost their job, they've lost a loved one, a friendship, something has happened, and basically they're in a suicidal state but they're in a suicidal state where they want to take other people with them. And again, because of the notoriety and that kind of stuff, that's another factor in it. So what I said in the program that I did about guns is this has to be a multifaceted thing. We need to do all of these things, not just one. Okay. Then going to Fox News, so their lead is Biden's bold vow. Biden warns gun owners that he's coming for their firearms if you have an assault weapon. And other stuff that's in here is they talk about some Democratic candidates. Gabbard doubles down on Harris' slam. Her entire campaign is based on a lie. This is on the front page, if you will, of Fox News. I'm not going to... one thing I do see is that Bill de Blasio, who is the mayor of New York and a Democratic candidate for president in 2020, he is going to appear on Sean Hannity tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And I strongly applaud all people that can get on these different shows to do so, because, again, the ignorance, we should not allow anyone to be ignorant, and one of the many ways to do that is to end this segregation, either in where we live or segregation in how we approach the people of this country. And so it is a horrific mistake for the Democrats to spend their time in Democratic fundraisers and in front of friendly audiences. I mean, it may feel good from the standpoint of getting all that applause, but it does nothing for advancing the cause of bringing this nation together and extending understanding of the issues. And so Bill de Blasio, by going on Hannity, is going to, and the other Democratic candidates, I think Buttigieg has been on there, Bernie Sanders has been on these places, the more the merrier. And personally, I strongly, and I've been sending tweets and stuff to the various candidates, I'm strongly encouraging them to go out and spend a lot of time in rural areas, understanding what the voters in those areas, what struggles they have, and then, coming up with some really good policies that hopefully would address the issues that these voters see every day. I mean, they're part of the country. They may be in a rural area as opposed to in a city somewhere, and it may be harder to reach larger groups of them, but you gotta, they're people in this country and important people, and they deserve to be heard. And the Democrats need to get out there and be heard and listen so that these voters out there are heard. And what you're going to find is that additional understanding, again, is going to bring us together. And we're going to have a much better future when that happens. And then Breitbart, which is, again, right-leaning. Their main title is, or headline is, Julio Castro doxes Trump donors. And I don't even know what doxes means, so I'm going to have to look that up. But I'm not going to do it now because we're running out of time. All right, so that's my presentation today, really pointing out some of the bias in the news and talking to you about that, encouraging you to look and at least listen to opposing views and try to ferret out the information that isn't normally provided to you by some of the information streams that you might normally monitor or look at. All right, well, so for Tuesday, August 6th, this is the Pro and Con Show. I'm Michael James Ott again, and until the next show, bye for now.